your life and doctrine closely, and then persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. And I pray that today will help us to really shape our lives so that God can use us more effectively as instruments for His glory. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint on this. The first time that we shared with each other was when we talked about the shifts of what is needed to turn a secular home into a Christian home. Because we may be Christians living in a secular home, and then we talk through the 7 shifts that are needed to shift to, so that our home will be a testimony of a real Christian home. And I want us all to really understand that the new generation, they are really keen to learn by their eyes more than they are keen to learn by their ears, which means that example is training for them. They watch your example, and that is their training. Not what you say necessarily as much as what you do and demonstrate in your life. So we are going to talk about restoring society starting at home. And the particular emphasis today is on the insecurities that make families, church, and society implode. So let's go through this. And please, as we go through this, write down your questions so that in our Q&A time, we will have good questions and that we can make full use of that 30 minutes of Q&A right at the end. So insecurities. Now, many people act inappropriately, that you see them act not in the way that they should. And or you look at a person, you see, you know what, I'm not sure if this is the real guy. He acts a little bit uncomfortable in his own skin. And other people, you see that they compensate for their shortcomings in their own lives, and they do things that they themselves actually would not want to do, and others find it strange as well. Now, the problem with that is, if you're not your true self, if you do not act appropriate to what you truly are, then your children suffer, your colleagues, your spouse, and then misunderstandings follow, and definitely many clashes in the marriage then due to that itself. Now, insecurities we see very clearly in the Bible. So many people ask me always when I speak about a subject, where do we find this in the Bible? Here is where you find it in the Bible. Now, King Saul, the Bible, I think he's the only guy that the Bible says he was attractive. So he's attractive, he's 1 foot taller than anyone in his whole nation. So you would think that this guy is a guy with real good confidence. But what happens when they want to crown him to become the king? He hides in the storeroom. They struggle to find him. So his insecurities made him run at that stage, for instance. Then we read a strict warning in Proverbs chapter 30, where we read the following. In the Living Translation, it says, there are 4 things that make the earth tremble. Now, just this word is powerful. And because these are the things that make the earth tremble right now. Right now, it makes the earth tremble. And that is a slave who becomes a king. In many countries, you have the rebel force leader that turn into a king. That causes chaos. And then a rebel who prospers. A bitter woman when she finally marries. A servant girl who marries her mistress' husband. This is what the book of Proverbs says. Now, immediately when you read this, you know what the problem is here. The problem is that they are all people with insecurities, given a huge responsibility over other people. And the Bible says, careful of that. That is super dangerous. And now you can see this in many cases in the Bible. Now, King Herod, for instance, how crazy is this? That you are already king. Now, small boys are born. Someone comes with a message, a king is born. The time that this king is at the age that he can become king, Herod is retired. He is in his old age. Why would he kill all the 2-year-old boys of his time? So you shake your head and you just say, man, this is ridiculous. This guy can only do this because of all his insecurities. But for us, a very key one is Diotrephes. You read this in 3 John verse 9. And then John says about this guy, a strange sentence. He says, he always wants to be first. Now, we grow up in a culture that says, you got to be first, you got to be first. And when we read that verse, and we say, but of course you always want to be first. No, we don't understand. It's only when you carry insecurities that you always want to be first. It's not when you really want to express exactly what you want, because the person without insecurities does not want to be first. He just wants a result, whether he is first or second or third or last. It's not important to him to be first. And the Bible is very clear on that. Philippians 2 verse 3, do nothing out of selfish ambition and vain conceit, but consider others better than yourself. So clearly, Diotrephes had a massive problem, and his problem was he carried insecurities. And that's why John warns people against Diotrephes. Be careful of him. He always wants to be first. So we have many examples from the Bible. Where do insecurities come from? That's the big question. Now, I have been a leadership trainer now for 20 years. We have trained leaders from more than 160 nations. Their average age is about 32 years old. They come to South Africa, 50 countries, 50 people from 40 countries every year, and we have them for 3 months. So for 3 months every year, I'm immersed in 40 cultures to train leaders from all these different nations. Now, obviously, when you're a leadership trainer, your concern is how can you enhance great leadership in nations? And many of them, or most of them, are in Christian ministries. Not all, but most of them. Many of them are pastors. Many of them run ministries, and others are just professionals also involved in kingdom work. And so your concern is, how can I enhance this? And then you discover that somewhere in the process of training leaders, you get stuck. There is something that you just feel this is holding them back. And then we started to try and find, because generally speaking, when you go through leadership training, people don't train you in how to deal with your weaknesses. They actually train you how to deal with your strengths. And we discovered that there's actually weaknesses that make leaders fall more than strength that make them successful. And so where do these weaknesses come from? So we did our own research on this and then discovered the following. That if you get people acting inappropriately, that the root of that is most probably insecurities caused by their father and their mother wounds that they carry. And then we studied it more particularly and found the detail of that coming from what mothers and fathers should invest in the lives of children, but probably did not. And then they are deprived of that great quality, that great substance, capacity to do things. And then when they are in a position of influence, then they want to draw on a substance, a capacity that they do not possess. So let me explain this like this. Let me go back to this one. As soon as you are born, mothers have to invest the following in your life. And this, the first one is intimacy. Now that is desperately needed for a small child. So if mother and child are separated, then that person would most probably for the rest of his life struggle with that closeness and that intimate situation. We say mothers impart intimacy to children. Now, I'm not going into that detail because that we do in the training on how it should be done. But if, for instance, you did not get that intimacy from mother, fast forward 20, 30 years later, now you're in a marriage or now you're in a leadership position and now you are challenged in close quarters. Marriage is very close and intimate, supposed to be. And if it comes close and this person just steps out of that, steps back because the person is not comfortable with intimacy, then you of what this person has been deprived of. And we will see a few examples of what happens later in life, later on. And the same happens if the mother is not there. You're in a creche or kindergarten, I don't know what you call it, preschool, and the mother is not there to hug you when you fall and when you cry. And the mother's hug is for sure not the same as a caregiver's hug. The secretion of oxytocin is not the same in the mother's brain than in the caregiver's brain, for instance, which means the closeness is not the same. And then when it comes to the father responsibilities, and these are the father responsibilities that we cover in our training, the main 4 father responsibilities derived from God the Father's interaction with his son. This is my son, identity, whom I love. This is the emotional security, with whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. So those 4. So when the father does not bring that emotional security to the children, they suffer for the rest of their lives. So I want you to see this. It is like when a child is born without a hand physically, you can see it immediately. And then you adapt so that you can help the child to live without the one hand. But when the parents do not make these investments in the lives of children, what happens is that they lose, emotionally speaking. They lose a hand or a leg or an eye or an ear, and then they are impaired. And then people ask me, is that for the rest of their lives? I think we should start by saying yes, most probably. So we will talk at the end about the victory over this. How do you live with this impairment? But for now, it is important to understand it comes from a specific window period in your life. And that is a very essential window period that if they do not invest this in your life, you may struggle with that. Moral authority comes before the child derives the God concept from the father at 6 years old. It is very essential that the father would then exhibit good moral authority, beneficial moral authority in the house. And then that affirmation, which is absolutely essential to install the right self-worth concept in your life. And that comes between 6 and 8 years, more prevalently than in other years in your life. And then the installation of identity that starts here by 10, 11 in the life of a child. So this is needed in the lives of children. And this is why we train fathers and mothers right now, so that they can know exactly what to invest in the lives of children. Because the problem is this: if they do not do this, the marriages will suffer. Their leadership execution will be impaired later on in their lives. So let's continue. So this is the base. This is where it comes from. Let's look at the symptoms or the evidences of these insecurities. Where did we pick it up? For instance, in our leadership training, we really focus on group work, because we say that people's character and also their relational capacity are tested in group situations. So we really turn the burner on, as they say, in group interaction. So we do a lot of experiential learning, and once we put them in experiential learning context where they have group interaction, then we see that some people really, really struggle to connect with others. They can't be good team players. And then we know exactly where it comes from, and then we investigate to see whether this is true, and then we discover it comes from a mother wound that they carry from early in their lives. So they struggle to trust other people. Now, if you cannot trust other people, how can they trust you? So that's a massive problem in leadership, to not trust other people, because then they will not trust you, they will not connect with you, or to connect with them emotionally. You see, people do not buy in your concept until they buy in your heart, until they buy in your life. I would add, the first was a quote from from John Maxwell. The second one is just my quote: until they buy in your life. They first buy into your life before they buy into your concept, your idea, your vision. And so if you cannot come close to people, you cannot really influence them. We train in our schools and we say there is a massive difference between a hero and a leader. The hero is the guy on the stage. The hero you clap your hands for, you give him acknowledgement, you even bow before him, and you think, I wish I would be like this person, but this person does not really have great influence in your life. A leader is different to a hero. A hero lives for one generation, a leader lives for many. Because a leader is seen in his followers. And it's in the followers that you see the impact of the leader. And if the followers can't get close to him, he can't have that impact. Now, this is so beautiful, that we see in the life of Jesus. Ah, man, the more I study leadership, the more I love Jesus. It is so beautiful. Jesus did not tell them, come and I will tell you exactly what you have to know. This is not his introduction. This is not his invitation. His invitation is come and follow me. This means come, I will demonstrate life to you. Come close, be with me, so that you can be like me and so that you can follow me. This is his invitation. And this should be the invitation of leaders. We see this in Paul as well. Paul does not say, come and follow Jesus. Paul says, come and follow me as I follow Jesus. So again, that invitation to come close, that's why he tells them, I've shown you my life. And this is what our invitation should also be. But if you have a mother wound, you struggle to allow people close to you and to come close to other people. Number two, leaders feel that they are not good enough from a father wound. If a father did not tell you, you are really significant, you have a real contribution to make in life, and this they should tell you hereby between 6 and 8 years old, then you may grow up, have the leadership position, but you don't have that real sound or healthy confidence. And this is important to make a differentiation between healthy and unhealthy confidence. So a healthy confidence, that you're settled in yourself. You don't need other people to really give you applaud and affirmation, because you get it. You already have this as part and parcel of your life through the voice of your father. There are too many people in leadership positions that want to live for the applaud of people and the accolades because they are insecure. Number three, people are aggressively defensive when criticized. Now, let me give you a practical example of that. And this always bothered me. Why would one wife say to her husband, pick up your socks? And he says, oh, I'm sorry, my dear, I forgot to do it. And he picks it up and he puts it in the wash basin. But the next door family sounds completely different. The wife says the same words, pick up your socks. But the husband starts and he goes like this. Hey, do you think that I don't contribute to this household? I work day and night to supply the provision for this household. Now you want to tell me to pick up my... And you listen to that guy and you say, where does he come from? What happened in his life? And then you suddenly realize, no, he's got a massive insecurity. That is why he is aggressively defensive, which is actually a serious psychological problem from a father wound, because he never understood his uniqueness. He was never loved unconditionally, or whatever the root of that specific problem would be. Number four, pastors love their titles too much. Oh my. They come to my international school, they introduce themselves, I am Pastor Peter. And then I say to them, oh, so your name is Pastor and your surname Peter. No. I'm Pastor Peter. I say, I'm Cassie Carstens. My name is Cassie, my surname is Carstens. So your name is Pastor and your surname is Peter. No. I'm Pastor Peter, and then he adds his surname. And then I say, so why were you baptized Pastor Peter? Or were you baptized Peter? No, I was baptized Peter. So why do you say Pastor Peter? No. It is our culture. Really. It could possibly be your culture, but it could possibly be your insecurity as well. Because if you introduce yourself with your title, you actually elevate yourself above other people. So if you're Pastor Peter and I'm only Cassie, then you have a title and then you live from a position above me. So let's just equalize everything at the school. Because if some are Pastor Peters and others are only Peters, then we have a problem. So we will never, ever introduce ourselves with our titles. Do we understand each other? You only introduce yourself with a title if you are insecure. Guys, I've traveled the whole world. And ladies, I've traveled the whole world. The people with a sicky would never, ever introduce themselves with their titles. But the people that still carry insecurity, some cultures help them. but they introduce themselves with their title. So I hope I kill this title thing here today and forevermore. I mean, you don't go home and your wife says, "Hello, Pastor Peter." If she does it, you've got a serious marriage problem that I will have to intervene. Okay, and you won't call her sister. There's a specific name for the mother of the wife of a pastor. Simon, something like this. Is that right? Simon here locally. It's a wife of a pastor. Oh my word! That's not a title to hold on to, please. So let's just be who we are. Because let's not live from our insecurities, because every person living from his insecurities create improper results at one or another level. So let's go to number 5. Pastors can preach, but they do not disciple because they grew up with mother deprivation when mothers left them at home too early to follow their careers. I am very deeply entrenched in disciple making of disciple makers. Me and my son also wrote a book on discipleship. And what we have discovered is, traveling in Africa particularly, we have discovered that many pastors preach on discipleship, but they can never do it. They think that preaching is disciple making, which is not true. Preaching is preaching. It's not disciple making, because in disciple making, you got to be in eye contact. You got to sit opposite the person. The person has to derive from your life, from your eyes, from your behavior, from your body language. It's close encounters, very close, intimate encounters with disciples that make them disciples. It's not done by preaching. But then they continue by preaching, even preaching about discipleship, but they don't do discipleship. And then you can really dive into this, and in many, many cases, most cases, you discover a mother wound that they carry, which makes it impossible for them actually to disciple. So that is one problem. And then another one is, for instance, number 6, spouses are distanced from each other because of a clash of their mother and their father wounds. Now, in this case, I want to tell you something of me and my wife. So here I grow up. I'm in a very prestigious church, the First Church, people with big titles in the church, leaders of the nation, heads of companies, and so on and so on. And so I want to be great. I want to be good. And I'm ambitious at the same time. And I also carry an insecurity, and my insecurity feeds me. And here I go. I do great sermons. I impress the people. And I am so performance driven. Performance drivenness comes from insecurities in many cases. You will see this. So I'm so performance driven. I preach and the people say, "Wow, what a sermon, phenomenal." But I don't want to hear the applaud from them or the affirmation from them. I actually want it from my dad, but my dad is not there. So closest to me is my wife. So now I want it from my wife. So I come from the pulpit, I go back home. My wife was in the church. She heard the sermon, and now I expect her to roll out the red carpet, fall on her knees, acknowledge me, and wait for me at the front door and say, "You are simply the best." If she could sing the song, it would even help. So, simply the best. But so I shout when I come into the house, "Hello, I'm back," expecting her to run towards me. No, I hear she's not even walking towards me. I hear a voice from a far room, and she says, "Oh, please remember to take out the trash bin, please." And I think, oh heavens, cover me, mountains fall on me. What is happening here? Why is she staying in the room? And then later I discovered she's staying in the room because she carries a mother wound. Because she was separated from her mother due to an illness that her mother had early in her life. And therefore, she was separated. For her to come naturally close to you, she had simply to learn that behavior later on. It didn't come naturally, initially. You understand? And so her mother wound clashes with my father wound. My father wound says, "I need affirmation and closeness." Her mother wound says, "No, I don't go close easily." And these two wounds clash with each other. And there you got a marriage problem. Now, by God's grace, God led us through this to create a great marriage. But this is happening in so many homes, and possibly in your home as well. But you've got to be conscious of that. If it's not applicable for you, it is for sure applicable to many leaders in your church. And if you do disciple making, it is for sure the number one thing that you must address, because it is the number one reason causing divorce, causing marital problems, and not what Google says, communication, conflict, and sex. No, insecurities is the number one cause of marital problems. I hope you understand the impact of this, that this is absolutely enormous in our own lives and in the lives of the people of our church, and particularly the leaders of our church. If you look at other forms or symptoms of insecurities, then you see this: people that want to prove themselves, they just self-justify, they find security in material possessions, they buy things that they can actually not afford to impress people that they actually do not like. I always say they are people pleasers. I want to pause a little with this one. In my first years, I was such a people pleaser. Man, a woman can ask me, Pastor, come and pray for the dog. I will go and pray for the dog. Come and pray for my cat or whatever it is, my parrot. I would come. It is the first birthday of my child. Can you come and join us at this occasion? Yes, I will be there. And I was running mad. My wife one night said to me, you're trying to please people too much. Why did I do it? Because I was a people pleaser. And that's the insecurity that you carry. And you think this is a spiritual thing. Oh, I'm the pastor of this church. I care for the problems of everyone. That's absolute nonsense, because the Bible didn't say that you should do this. The Bible said in Ephesians 4 that you should train others to do this. This is what the Bible says. So it's your insecurity driving you, not your spirituality. We got to discover this in ourselves, that we are not. Jesus was not insecure. So it was very easy for him to say, when they say, your friend is ill, he's going to die. Jesus said, I'm not coming. So there's nothing insecure in Jesus. So he can say no without any problem. And we must create that ability to say no, because we make good and wise decisions, not because we are driven by our insecurities. Indulgence in addictions. The TV addiction is one of them. Then condemnatory or paternalistic over people, self-pity, cannot deal with critique. There are so few people that invite critique. I always say to pastors, please ask your wife to tell you what is wrong with you, because no one else is going to tell you. But people don't like to do this because of their insecurities. If you have securities, you will invite people to tell you where you go wrong. Or they seek insatiably for recognition, which is an orphan spirit. They're jealous. Racism is a symptom of that, floating in life. But the main one that causes the biggest damage in life is false self-concept. And I want to unpack this one a little bit for you. False self-concept that we carry. Insecurities caused by father and mother deprivation reflect in our false self-concepts. I want you to look at this. If the basic need, and the basic need of all people, is intimacy when they are between 0 and 2 years old. If you don't get that from your mother particularly, then you have a wound of rejection. It's subconsciously, you don't remember this, but it is subconsciously, it is there. And then you have excessive need for acceptance. And then you create this false self-understanding that I am what other people think of me. That's the people pleaser there, right there. And it comes from your first 2 years of your life. And then the capacity. You've got to know when you're about 4 or 5 years old, you've got to know that you're capable of tying your shoelaces, making your bed, and things like this. If that is not there with the affirmation of your parents, then you create this concept, I am what I do. I had a friend who studied 4 PhDs, 2 of them in Europe, summa cum laude. His life was a complete mess. Those PhDs were all in theology. His life was a complete mess because of his insecurities driving him to study more and more and more without being able to evaluate anything of what he studied, and he got his degrees for. So please, because I am what I do. And this is where, if we grow children with insecurities, then they will want to become the CEO of a company. Why do you want to be a CEO of a company? Why not second in charge? Second in charge is often the most influential person, not the first in charge. He's the protocol person. Second in charge is often the most influential person. So why do you do that? Want to be first. And then 6 to 8 years old, self-worth concept. If you don't have that, then you have this excessive need to be valuable. I am what I have. And then you buy the Lamborghinis and the other great cars to impress people on what you have, that you are really, that you've made it in life, that you're successful in life. Can you see these deep-seated ones? What happens with that? It creates a false self-concept. Now, can you imagine that this guy marries this girl? So all he knows is what he has seen in a mask, and not what he has seen behind the mask. And behind the mask, there is this false concept. And a false self is who we think we are. Richard Rohr says this. It is our mental self-image and social agreement. And I want you to see that mental self-image. So that is a concocted belief in your mind of who you are, and the social agreement. You treat other people, you interact with other people on this basis, which most people spend their whole lives living up or down to, he says. So let me show you a false self-concept and a true one. The false one is the concocted belief or programming that I am inferior, incapable, and rejected. Can you see that comes from the father and the mother? And that I now have to build my identity on what I have, what I do, and what other people think of me. And the whole time in your life, this is what you try to build, and this is what you try to express. But as people created by God and recreated by Christ, we are different. We are the intended expression of God, understanding that I am the beloved. So you don't need to be loved by people. You get up in the morning knowing I am the beloved by God, uniquely and sufficiently gifted to reign on earth as a representative of heaven. And then you depart from that position in your life. Every morning in my life, I stand up and I remind myself of that. I am here to represent God on earth. I don't need the applause of people. God has already hugged me and said, my child, the creator of the universe has hugged me. Why do I need the applause of people? And then you can freely serve other people and give them whatever God has invested in you. And it's not for yourself, because you can see the false self here. It's all about me. And the true self is all what I give you because I have the capacity given by God to really serve you. And that's why we fluctuate often between the false self and the true self in our lives. This, my friends, and this you have to remember in your ministry. This is simply the biggest reason for unhealthy marriages. If you don't address this, you will not address the root of the problem of marriages. This is the biggest reason for bad leadership. If you don't address this in your own life, I'm sorry, you will not be a leadership that will last for generations to come. This is the biggest reason for personal dissatisfaction, why people come to counseling over and over and over, because the root problem is not addressed. And therefore, we just address the symptoms of the problems that people carry. Biggest reason why people don't get over their problems. The biggest reason for our leadership crisis in our country. So let me come. I only have 17 minutes, I think, left. Let me come to the last two that I want to share with you. First, it is important that you assess what symptoms do you carry of your father and your motherhood. We do not have the time in this hour, but as you expected, is that I will definitely leave you with something that says that you got to go through the world needs a father training. So I give you just a taste here so that you will come back for full training. And this is the taste. We have developed a questionnaire which you fill in, that you mark and see the symptoms in your life. I struggle with opening up emotionally, etc., etc. I'm not even going to read all of this so that you will be enticed to come for the training. And then you fill it in and you see, oh my, I may carry quite a number of these insecurities in my life coming from the mother wound, and then also, these are all mother wounds, and then also coming from the father wound. These are all possible symptoms of a father wound. And then you can see, oh my, and then you have to think back, where did this come from? You go back into your history, and then you discover maybe when I was 6 years old, you can't remember the dates of your mother wound so well, and that's why you have to talk to family members of your mother and ask them the condition that she was in when you were at a specific age, between 0 and 5 years old, or the father wounds. And then you detect these things. Then you mark it. And then you sit with the responsibility of getting healing of your wounds. Now, we use the word healing quite often in the church context. I want to encourage you today to replace the word healing with another word. And the word is victory. And the reason for that is I honestly believe that God prefers victory over healing. Now, this is a massive statement. I know that some of you get up right now and some of you shut down and say, I'm out of this conference because I'm preaching healing all the time. Let me just explain myself a little bit and maybe you have tolerance with me. You see, Paul says he heard from God when he asked, can you take this thorn from me out of my flesh? That God answered him, no, I'm not going to take this, Paul. So I'm not interested in healing for you, but I'm interested in your sanctification. I'm interested that you, in your weakness, my power will be expressed so that you will not become boastful, not be filled with pride and things like this. You see, my friends, we are obviously interested in healing because if we have healing, then we don't carry a burden. But God is more interested in relationships. And that's why God is more interested in victory. Because victory implies that I stay in constant connection with God to have victory over my challenge. So when people ask me, if you lose a hand or a leg by your mother and your father wounds, does it grow back on again? And the answer is no, probably not. Probably you will be haunted for the rest of your life with this predisposition. This is a good word for that. But the good thing is predisposition is not destiny necessarily. And therefore you live with this, but you can learn to become a victor instead of a victim of this mother and father wound that you carry. And that happens in close relationship with God. God is seriously interested in close relationship. To stay close with God is just so important. And that is why we teach people to have victory over their predispositions, over their father and their mother wounds. Now, the first thing there, let me go back 2 slides, is just to remind you that you will never get victory over your wounds if you go in the blame game or the shame game. So what I'm saying about the father and the mother wounds is not to blame them, because you have the problem. And you must take responsibility for the problem. So to blame and carry on blaming them would not give you victory over that. To have the shame game, I'm a victim, poor me, feel sorry for me, will also not help you to overcome your problem. But the problem is overcome by these 4 things. That you own the wound, that you forgive the people, that you have inner victory, and that you have people that will walk with you. So the first one is owning the wound. So you've got to own the problem. The way of owning the problem is to identify the problem. That's why we have the questionnaire. Identify the problem, but then also to say not only that I identify the problem, but to also say that I acknowledge that I have this problem. To acknowledge to your wife, my wife, I struggle with this insecurity, this father wound in my life, and to name the wound particularly. So my father wound is my dad was never happy even if I would have high scores, so next time better was his mantra. So I always think that anything that I do is not enough. Next time better, the next Zoom will be better, the next book will be better, or whatever it is. So that's my wound. Name the unfulfilled need by stating it verbally, like I did now. Face the facts about the impact of this wound. And if you are like that, you can become so driven for performance, or you become so dependent on affirmation. In my case now, in my wound. So name it. Name the problem that you have. Because if you name it, then you really own the problem. The second one is cut the root of the problem by forgiveness. So let's run through this. So forgiveness, and I wish we could spend much more time on this, which we do when we do training, but it's a strong act. It's not easy because many people have enormous problems that they encountered when they were young. And therefore, their forgiveness is a strong act of saying to other people that they forgive them, even if it is extremely difficult. And therefore, it's important that you swing from you owe me to I owe you. Take authority over these negative impacts, discard the undue expectations of your father, and then apply that forgiveness to the father. And this is so important. I think this is why Jesus said, pray like this, forgive us as we forgive others. It unleashes, it unlocks the doors of unforgiveness, the prison of unforgiveness that we are in. And then God can really flow with his blessing in our lives. Then the third one, and that is allow God to have the only right to make you happy or sad. The only right to make you happy or sad. And this is very important that you give God that so that you can take captive these negative thoughts and make it obedient to Christ. Very important that you allow God to really take control and bring you victory. So how do we do this? We have a negative feeling due to a mistake maybe that we have made. Then Satan comes and he specializes on our insecurities. And he comes to that insecurity and he adds a lie by, saying a word, extreme evaluation of the situation. So for instance, if you make a mistake, Satan would come and tell you, you are completely useless. And that runs in your mind and it becomes a conviction in your mind. Then you create mind patterns that before you even try to do something, your mind tells you, you are useless. Now you've got to really exchange that lie with the truth. I am not only useful, I am extremely special because I'm a child of God. 1 John 3 verse 1, for instance. I'm a child of God. And therefore I am special. And then you have to act on that truth. And you simply have to brainwash yourself and create new brain pathways that say, you're not useless, you are not only useful, you are unique and special with a special contribution to make, and therefore act on the truth. And this brain pattern, you have to train yourself. We know now by the neuroscience that you have to do it 63 times without a mistake. And once you make a mistake, you start all over again. And if you repeat successfully 63 times that in your mind, it will probably create a new brain pattern from which you can function then in your life. And that is so essential. This victory over that negative intention that you have to think about your insecurities or to function from your insecurities. So you feel something, have a conviction, you replace it with the truth, and then you have action on the truth. And that is the inner victory that you can live by. Now, friends, we simply have to train our people in the church this. So we really short circuit this process. We really are not really thorough enough. The person comes to you, has a problem, let's pray for it. Lord Jesus, help him with this problem, please, bye-bye. That does not really bring healing. I'm sorry. We are too fast to pray, and we don't go into the effort of transforming the minds of people. And we cannot transform the minds of people unless they acknowledge the problem. And unless they forgive the people that caused them the problem, and unless they train themselves, train themselves into real thinking. And that needs to start with us first. So if we cannot train people in this, if we have not practiced this for ourselves. So God trained me when I had a negative thought about my wife years back, about 9 years after I got married. God trained me to think about my wife in a new way by 60 times saying a great thing about my wife before I pray. And I trained my mind to every time I think of my wife now, I just think, I just smile when I think about my wife. It's just the most wonderful, marvelous thing to spend my time on, thinking about my wife, because I can think of all these 60 great things of my wife. Right, so step into victory. And that is a journey of repetitive healing episodes where you ask the Holy Spirit over your life to combat the flesh and the fleshly way of thinking in your lives as well. Identify behavior and thoughts in yourself that inhibit your own growth so that you can eradicate your life from that, and you can only have these positive thoughts about that. Very important to know that the sins of our parents create our predisposition, but not our destiny. Therefore, we choose what we think, and then we act on this new thought. Obviously, we get these new thoughts from the truth of the Bible, and then we live that in our lives. I've set before you life and death, the Bible says, blessing and cursing, therefore choose life, and so that both you and your descendants may live. Let me come to the last one. And that is, if we want victory, first one we said, you own the problem. The second one we said, you forgive. The third one you said, you practice, train yourself in inner victory. And the fourth one is you walk together. Oh my, I wish we can have more discipleship making in our churches, practicing Jesus together. We have a concept called the table of support. I will show it to you right now, where we believe that there are 10 people that should travel with you, helping you to overcome your insecurities, but also so that you can optimize in your kingdom potential. And that's probably two of the main things that those people in your life should do. And therefore, please, let's encourage everyone to really have other people that can impact their lives. And therefore, we got to spend time with the right people and have them invest in our lives in the right way. Here we have the table of support. Hopefully, if we have a next time, then we can unpack this table of support. The main person here is the mentor, or you could call him the disciple maker. And this person is the one that must do the whole life coaching for you. And then you have the mentee, that is your disciple. And you are the mentor or the disciple maker of the mentee. And you are the whole life coach. And all these people, they are absolutely essential to carry you through in life. And then you can walk a life where you fight the pride or self-pity, and you ask these people to keep you accountable. You set your mind to use your healing wounds as a healing balm for the wounds of others. And this is the great thing of God turning what Satan intended to destroy us, turn that into good. Then you spend time in healthy relationships with older men or accountability friends so that you could model fatherhood in the right way. And then you become the father you never had, and you life coach other fathers into true, real fatherhood. That, my friends, will bring us to what we started with, that we can say with Paul, and that is, you know what? I want your life to be an example for others. Watch your life together with watching your doctrine closely, and God will bless you tremendously in ministry. So that was our PowerPoint, and that brings us to the next part of our session. I hear that our friend Vian has dropped off. Maybe they have a power cut, and maybe he will make a plan to get back on. And Vian, if you are back on and you can hear me, you can respond immediately. And I see, for instance, Elijah, you have a group of people. It looks like the whole congregation is almost there this morning. I just want to compliment you on this. Wow, how marvelous is this to see? Look at that. So many people in that space listening in on this. Oh, man. Praise God. I applaud you. What a marvelous thing to do. Because now you have content that you can discuss. And through disciple making. So I hope you take this content, you discuss it through with each other, you work it through with the pastor, the leader there, and then you work it through with your spouse at the same time, and you become the father and the mother that you should be. And then please, it is so important, if we look at the mother and the father wounds, that we say we must get trained to be a father and a proper mother, so that we make that good investments in the lives of our children at the appropriate times. And if you feel bad now today that you know that you are too old, the children are too big, there can be restoration. And even if you're a grandfather, you can train your children how to become better fathers, so that the future generation would not suffer as the current generation is suffering.